تفضل.
Salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Welcome. Thank you for having me. Thank you for joining me. So yeah, the title for today is Charting the Skies, Innovation in Aviation for a Green Tomorrow. And the purpose is essentially to explore the latest advancement in the aviation industry and all of the practices kind of aimed at reducing the environmental impact of air travel. So the kind of agenda is I'm going to first go over the environmental challenge, and that's important because we need to kind of know the backdrop behind why the industry is innovating. And then after that, I'll hopefully go over the importance of sustainable aviation and environmentally friendly aviation. Now, initially, I was actually going to start have the whole session about the aircraft themselves and all of the kind of advancements and technology and innovation that they use on the aircraft. But I thought it's a bit more of a holistic problem, and there's a lot more solutions than just developing the aeroplanes. And so I will go over those advancements on the aircraft as well, just potentially not in as much detail. And then I'll be going over some of the air traffic optimizations and the airport operations that can be changed or are changing to make things more sustainable, more green. The role of people, airlines, and public perception, or the government, and the sort of pathway going forward. Let's just dive straight into it. The environmental challenge, it's important to recognize, obviously, like I said, what the issues are, because it will also hopefully give a backdrop for some of the solutions that we're going to discuss later. First and foremost, obviously, the most significant one is carbon emissions. Aircraft is obviously still powered by fossil fuels, jet fuel, and obviously that releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And the aviation industry is responsible for a massive, massive chunk of all of global CO2 emissions. And of course, that contributes to climate change through global warming, etc. But alongside the carbon emissions, aviation also generates other sort of environmental concerns. One of those is, of course, noise pollution. The roar of the jet engines can disturb communities around the airport, affecting quality of life of people and also animals and things like that. Moving on to animals, wildlife conservation, airports and the sort of airport complex is often in kind of, natural habitats, and that can pose a risk to the local wildlife. You've probably seen the kind of famous picture of the aeroplane with the bird that's flown into the nose of the aeroplane. And of course, that's harmful for both animals and for aircraft and for passengers potentially, as well as, of course, the environmental effect. Another crucial thing to think about when we're talking about environmental challenges that maybe you won't necessarily come to the forefront of your mind is actually deforestation. So the use of printed documents for flight data can contribute to that quite a lot. If you have a look at the flight plans and all the manuals that pilots use to actually obviously fly, then it's quite a lot of paper, and of course that can contribute towards deforestation. So as we've seen, obviously there's quite a few significant environmental challenges with aviation, but we still need it. We still need the aviation industry. It plays a massive role in the global economy. It plays a massive role in people's lives. It connects everything from people, goods, and businesses, and it facilitates trade, tourism, and economic growth. And it brings us to the importance of the kind of way of finding it sustainable. It's about finding a way to continue using aviation and balancing that growth with the benefits of the air travel, but also mitigating the impacts that it could potentially have. And it's important to strike a balance between that kind of economic development and the responsibility that we have for the planet. Now, sustainable aviation and this whole kind of presentation is not just about talking about all of the negatives. I don't think it's very kind of useful to talk about just negative impacts, but it's also about harnessing innovation to make sure that we can create a more efficient, cleaner, and eco-friendly mode of transport. And hopefully that will also mean that the long-term viability of aviation as a transport network is kind of secure. So some of the things which airlines or, in fact, airplane companies are using to actually innovate and make their aeroplanes better for the environment. First one is single engine taxi after landing. Obviously, when they land, they don't need as much energy, so they turn off one of the engines, and of course that translates into fuel savings, less energy burn, etc. There is a misconception that it's not very good for the longevity of the engine, constantly turning them on and off, but they're engineered to kind of endure multiple cycles of takeoffs and landings, and they're fairly robust. Paperless flight deck. So again, with the deforestation, most airlines have kind of started to use tablets to reduce the need for printed documents, and it also not only obviously does it help conserve trees, but it helps streamline the kind of data access to all of the information, and it enhances kind of pilot efficiency because it can access that information quicker and better. Quieter engines, so noise pollution we mentioned earlier. Newer engines have noise reduction technology. There's an engine called the Rolls-Royce Trent 1000, which is a lot quieter than the engines that preceded it. What makes them quiet? A lot of them use technology such as geared fan systems. Don't ask me what the specifics of that are. I'm not an engineer, unfortunately. But yeah, they use those geared fan systems, and they also try and clad the engine in sound absorbing material and the whole kind of engine structure, so that the noise doesn't escape. The geared fan system, there's an engine called the Pratt and Whitney geared turbofan, and that's quite a well-known engine for reduced noise emissions. We've also got sharklets, so that's the kind of curved bit at the end of the wings. And that just helps with the airflow, smooths it over the wings and reduces turbulence, and of course just helps with efficiency. There's the A321 Neos that has the sharklet there, and that actually shows around a 20% higher fuel efficiency. So it's really significant stuff. And in terms of CO2 emissions and environmental benefits, it's quite good. If all of the aeroplanes had a 20% reduction, then it will make a big difference to the environment. They also somehow emit 50% less noise. I'm assuming, I don't know, maybe through the slicing through the air. And a few other things as well. Lighter seats. Airlines or airplane companies manufacturers are using kind of quite complicated materials to make seats lighter, and of course less weight means again less energy needed. Less energy means less fuel, and less fuel ultimately means less fossil fuels released into the atmosphere. One thing which you might not have thought about, but washing engines. There's companies like Lufthansa Technik, who are kind of like airline maintenance companies. They actually pressure wash the engines. It can remove debris, can remove some of the deposits from the engines, and that helps the engines run smoother and burn the fuel more efficiently, rather than potentially put out waste that's not burned, or that could be harmful for the environment. So moving on, some of the future plans that aircraft manufacturers are still working on. Electric and hybrid aircraft, so quite a promising innovation towards more sustainable aviation. They've got these innovative kind of propulsion systems that use batteries and electric powered motors, and of course that reduces zero emissions during the flight. There is, of course, the issue with producing the batteries, producing the electricity to power the batteries, but of course that's a different topic entirely. But there's this company called Aviation Aircraft, who developed an aeroplane called Alice, and that's mainly used for kind of short haul flights, not long haul or local flights. In addition to electric, there's also hybrid. Airbus have made the EFAN X, and it combines your traditional jet engine system with an electric propulsion system, and it just means better fuel consumption and reduced emissions, especially within takeoff and landing. I think that's the main kind of area where they use it. One thing that I've not included is also solar powered aircraft. That is something that's sort of taking off recently. So yeah, that could be a potential, obviously, especially if you're above the clouds, then in terms of the sun, it's quite good. Now, one of the biggest kind of things which it looks really promising for the aviation industry is biofuels, and in fact, even for the motor industry. Biofuels are specifically kind of designed for the aircraft engines, and they're produced from a renewable resource. So rather than having to use fossil fuels, they use things like agricultural residue, algae, waste oils, things like that. And of course, one of the key advantages of that is that it's a kind of drop-in replacement. You don't have to change any of the existing engines or anything like that, and it can be compatible with the existing aircraft infrastructure and pump stations and things like that. And so that's something that could be quite big. And as well as being renewable, they also have reduced carbon emissions. And it could be as much as 80%. So again, it's a powerful tool to fight against aviation related emissions. And it's important to note aviation industries, actively investing in the development and production of all of these technologies, but specifically sustainable aviation fuels. And hopefully that means that it'll be a bit more affordable and a bit more commonplace in the future. So moving on, let's have a look at the air traffic management and optimization. So obviously, to help make the industry a lot cleaner, every kind of aspect of the industry is being kind of analysed and had a look at and seen how it can be made better. And one of the key areas of focus is the modernisation of air traffic management. These systems are obviously responsible for guiding the aircrafts, so when taxiing, when taking off, but also efficiently within skies as well. And there's AI algorithms and real-time data that's being used to optimize routes and also reduce congestion and again reduce that kind of impact on the environment. And it's also just about planning. If you can make routes more direct and efficient, it will further minimize the sort of impact of air travel. So yeah, that's one way that they kind of contribute towards a more sustainable industry. So the other big part is, of course, the airports themselves. They take up quite a big amount of space, and they're bustling hubs of activity. They are very busy. There's all sorts of things going on there, and so there's a few steps that the airports are actually taking to reduce their environmental footprint as well. One notable kind of initiative is solar power adoption. A lot of the airports are installing these arrays of solar panels on the rooftops and open spaces, and of course that just generates clean energy and reduces the reliance on fossil fuels and lowering greenhouses, etc. Another thing that they're doing is moving over to LED lighting. There's a lot of lights in an airport, as you can imagine, and traditional lighting consumes quite a lot of electricity. LED lighting is more efficient, but it's also better in terms of robustness. So it lasts longer as you reduce waste that way as well. Waste is another issue. There's a lot of waste going through an airport, so they put in waste reduction initiatives to try to minimize that impact by using single-use plastics and things like that. They're also looking at the ground transport at the airports. So there's a lot of shuttles, there's a lot of buses, there's a lot of vehicles that would be used within the airport. And they're looking at kind of sustainable and better ways to actually transport people around the actual airport complex. So moving on to what we can do and also how airlines can improve public perception so that we can kind of make better decisions. It's obviously we're the customer for aviation, and so it's important that the choices that we make can lead towards greener aviation, and the industry is quite understanding of what the expectations and preferences of passengers are, and they understand that the industry is moving towards a greener kind of a greener way. And travelers as well are increasingly concerned about the impact that they have on the environment. We can all see the impact. So if we can kind of, help reduce that impact, then that's great. So yeah, it's pushing airlines and manufacturers to prioritize these eco-friendly initiatives. Airlines are investing in more efficient aircrafts, and they're actively promoting, the sustainability that they do. Sometimes it can be sometimes it can be greenwashing, when they don't actually do anything behind the scenes. But a lot of the times they do actually make changes. So passenger choices, this is us, of course. Passengers are, trying to make more eco-conscious choices. So opting for non-stop flights rather than, multi stops, or choosing airlines that just, decide to actually invest in more sustainable practices. The industry understands as well that, they've got to align, and they've got to, kind of come together and work, to actually improve its operations and things like that. And airlines are also providing passengers with more information about the carbon emissions, and that means that we can make a better decision. If there's two flights and one is less, one has a lesser impact in terms of CO2 emissions, then if travelers know that, then they can obviously choose the option that is better. So moving on to the role of the government. Of course, the government is what sets out all of the laws, and so it's important for them to be involved. And of course, they play a pivotal kind of role in promoting greener practices, whether it's against aviation or other aspects of the industry or industries. And they're recognizing the challenges that are posed by aviation, and to address them, they're kind of implementing different policies and regulations. And one of the approaches, and I guess the best way to do it, is actually tax incentives. At the end of the day, these airlines are businesses, the airports are businesses, and if they can save tax by investing in these eco-friendly solutions, then they will be more likely to do it. And it just encourages the economy to actually do something about it. Another interesting thing that I didn't even know happened, but it was emissions trading. So airlines, companies in general can buy and sell carbon credits. And so again, that creates like a financial incentive for a lot of these companies to reduce their emissions. So carbon credits are basically, it's like a permit for whether it's a country or whether it's an organization to actually stick to a certain amount of carbon emissions. And if they go over or if they go under that, then they can sell or they can buy carbon credits, basically. And so, yeah, hopefully that's one way that a lot of these airline manufacturers, a lot of these airlines are actually, going towards a greener future. They're also setting kind of ambitious reduction targets for emission reductions, and putting the pressure on these airline manufacturers to actually innovate and find proper solutions for it. And one way as well that they kind of work is internationally. So of course, each country will have its own law, but also agreements between multiple countries as well. Really helps coordinate the efforts, because flights are worldwide, not just local. There's an international agreement called the CORSIA. That's the Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation, and they're playing a role in making sure that the global efforts are kind of targeted at limiting the emissions, particularly for international flights. So what's the kind of path going forward then? Of course, the industry has to collaborate with one another. It's kind of the main thing that has to happen. whether that's from airlines to the manufacturers to the airports and governments. They've got to all work together to actually find a better way forward, and they are doing that, and hopefully they'll find more sustainable solutions and implement them. There's also a big commitment to innovation and investment, like I said, partially because of the kind of tax incentives and also the carbon credit incentives. But continued research is being done, at all times, especially with the alternative SAF fuels, and again with operational things as well, like the airports and how they run and how airlines run. And again, like I mentioned previously, ambitious targets. So one of the goals that they've kind of assigned is for aviation as an industry to be neutral, carbon neutral by 2050. It's quite an ambitious target considering the growth of the industry, and also obviously the amount of carbon that it gives off. But I guess one of the ways to go through that is by working on planting trees and things like that to kind of offset their actual output. And yeah, it's an ongoing journey. Each step moves it forward, whether it's like technological advancements, whether it's policy changes or our own individual choices. Hopefully, it will all contribute to a more sustainable and eco-friendly industry. Now, I got a little surprise. We've got a bit of a quiz to do, and the winner of the quiz gets, well, I don't know, we might have multiple winners, but the winners of the quiz will get a gift. So if I just change my